Chapter 28, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. This was so much worse than she thought. Evie knew that this trip to the Isle of the Lost would mean they would discover that the villains were plotting yet another scheme. But she hadn't been prepared to hear about this. To think that there were 4 evil talismans out there, and that if their parents got a hold of them, they would be unstoppable. Was too frightening to contemplate. Since Mal had defeated Maleficent, Evie felt assured that they could handle whatever happened next, and that the power of good would always prevail. But now it sounded as if they were truly in peril once more. Thankfully, Mal still appeared calm as ever. At least now we know that's where they are, underground in the catacombs, looking for the power that they lost. Yes, said Yensid. The 4 of you must find these talismans and destroy them before your parents can use them against Auradon. I'm afraid you're the only ones who will be able to outsmart them. After all, no one knows them better than you. Mal, even if Maleficent is in no shape to retrieve the dragon's egg, it's still imperative that you recover it before anyone else does. Great, let's go, said Jay, already up from his seat. First, we must show you what we are working on, Yensid nodded to the assembled group, who sat at attention now, pulling out detailed maps and charts. We think we are close to getting an accurate map of the underground tunnels. You've been in the tunnels, then? Asked Carlos. No, none of us have. But then how can you draw maps of somewhere you've never been? Said Carlos, confused. With the help of a little research, Yensid told them. He nodded to the class, and they raised the books they were reading. We stole them from the Athenaeum of Evil, of course. A Brief History of Evil Talismans, The Legend of the Golden Cobra, Poisoned Fruit from the Toxic Tree, The Dragon's Eye Scepter, Lore and Myth. According to the books, each talisman is grown by magic in its ideal habitat, and so we have been sketching their possible landscapes, he said, as if it were as simple as learning how to plot an evil scheme or how to trick a mark out of its money, when it was probably as difficult as teaching a jolly crew of pirates table manners. Great, you guys have maps to share. All right then, just point us to the catacombs and we'll be on our way, said Jay. Well, that's where I'll need everyone's help tonight. We haven't been able to discover the exact location of the entrance to the catacombs, said the professor. We don't have much time left, so you and the rest of the anti-heroes will need to scour the island until you find it. He began to give the members their assignments, sending them to every part of the island, from Henchman's Knob to the Blown Bridge. Shall we go with them? Asked Jay as the anti-heroes started to trickle out to search. Yes, but please remain where you are now, for now. Before I send you 4 off on this journey, I have a few words of advice to give each of you. Acquiring these talismans will be very dangerous. Evil is seductive, and you will have to remain strong and not fall prey to its temptations. He stood in front of Carlos first and placed a hand on his head. Carlos DeVille, you possess a keen intelligence. However, do not let your head rule your heart. Learn to see what is truly in front of you. Evie was next, and Yensid did the same, resting a hand above her dark blue locks. Evie, remember that when you believe you are alone in the world, you are far from friendless. Jay bowed down and removed his beanie so the good professor can lay his hand on his head too. Jay of Agrabah, a boy of many talents, open your eyes and discover that the riches of the world are all around you. At last he came to Mal. Yensid delicately touched her purple head. Mal, daughter of Maleficent, you are from the blood of the dragon and carry its strength and fire. However, this burden is not yours to bear alone. Rely on your friends and let their strength carry yours as well. Yensid surveyed the young villains in front of him. What you are about to do is very dangerous. Carlos perked up. That's fine. My middle name is Oscar, said Evie. We know. The group of anti-heroes burst into applause as Mal, Evie, Jay, and Carlos shook hands with the professor and thanked him for his wisdom and guidance. "We will collect the maps that we do have, and said Jensen, give us a few moments." The group began to disperse to begin their respective assignments, talking excitedly among themselves. Carlos said goodbye to Harry and Jace, who had been tasked with searching near the Bargain Castle. Jay promised the pirates he would send them postcards from Oridon. Evie was glad they had figured out where their parents were, but going after them wasn't going to be easy. If Evil Queen was set on getting back her talisman of power, there was no stopping her. The woman elbowed people out of the way for a tube of concealer. "Heading out to search?" asked Harry. "Uh-huh," said Evie. "Glad you guys are the ones going after them, and not me and Jace. We'd be too scared, all right. Crikey, you're all so brave." "I'm not really," said Evie. "But sometimes you have to do things you have to do." "Thanks, though." Before setting off, however, she had to make sure she could move properly. She inspected her broken heel. She couldn't keep going this way. The endless catacombs of doom sure sounded like they would entail a lot of walking as well, and she was still wearing the wrong shoes. "Professor," she said, holding up her broken heel, "do you think you could fix this with a little magic of science or something?" He examined her shoe. "No, I'm afraid there is no way this can be salvaged through the magic of science." Evie's face fell as she resigned herself to stumbling her way through the catacomb, or through the underground, her feet blistered and calloused. "But I do have something that might help you," said Jensen. "What?" "Tape," he said as he deftly taped the broken heel back to its original shape. It wasn't a pair of sneakers, but at least she wouldn't be limping anymore. While Jensen went back to going over the possible locations for the entrance to the catacombs with Jay and Carlos, and the rest of the club members waited patiently for their assignments, Evie looked around the crowded room and didn't see Mal anywhere. Where had she gone? Evie took another look and caught a glimpse of bright aqua-colored hair swishing in the dark hallway, with Mal's purple head following behind. At first she thought that maybe Maddie just wanted to talk to Mal privately, but when the two of them didn't return after a few minutes, she had a darker feeling about it. She peeked into the corridor and saw Maddie heading out of the basement and up the cellar doors, with Mal following behind. Where were they going? Already wary of Maddie's friendship with Mal, Evie decided to follow them to see what they were up to. She looked behind her to make sure the boys were still talking to Jensen. She wasn't spying on Mal, she was just being careful, she told herself. Mal had to have a good reason for going off with Maddie, didn't she? Maddie was out of the basement now and heading down the path away from the castle. Mal was following behind at some distance. They weren't walking together, Evie realized now. Mal was following Maddie, for some reason. But why? Who cared about Maddie? They had to go find the entrance to the catacombs. There was no time for this. Corella DeVille, Evil Queen, and Jafar had a head start on them. If any one of them was able to lay their hands on their talisman, no one in Oridon would be safe. The foursome had to get going. What was Mal doing? Evie lagged behind, trying to put some space between them, when Maddie stopped suddenly and looked around. Mal ducked behind a tree, and Evie quickly hid in the shadows as well. She wasn't sure what was going on, but she was glad she hadn't let her friend go off alone like this. The two girls kept walking farther and farther away. Evie followed behind.